Welcome to our discussion on a compelling take about modern warfare and U.S. strategy, inspired by Douglas Macgregor's argument, which really shakes things up.
Yeah, absolutely. We're diving into his view that Trump's recent moves have sparked an unfinished war.
Right. So Macgregor, who's a retired colonel and was an advisor to the Secretary of Defense, makes this bold claim that what Trump initiated is not your typical conflict. It's a long drawn out war that won't wrap up anytime soon. And he argues that the ceasefire we keep hearing about, totally temporary, even fake.
That's pretty explosive. But does he explain why the ceasefire is just a facade?
Oh, absolutely. He suggests that the ceasefire is more of a political tool than an actual peace plan. It's like putting a bandage on a bullet
Right.
wound. It's a move to stall rather than settle.
Interesting. And it kind of makes you wonder, if you're setting up a ceasefire you know is fake, what's the long-term plan?
Exactly. McGregor's point seems to be that Trump may have inadvertently kicked off what he calls America's new long war. It's a conflict that's not confined to a neat battlefield, but is sprawling, ambiguous, and drawn out over time.
Yeah,
And he implies that the political and military maneuvers are just the beginning of something deeply entrenched.
and it's almost as if he's warning that while the ceasefire provides a temporary calm, the underlying issues aren't really being resolved.
Right, right. And that's a really keen observation. It's like, when you see someone patching up a leaky boat rather than actually fixing the hole, that's his analogy in essence.
How do you think this perspective ties into current US foreign policy debates?
Well, it definitely challenges the conventional narrative. Instead of viewing conflicts as discrete episodes with clear endpoints, McGregor's framing suggests that the US might be engaged in perpetual, low intensity conflicts, what some might call a long war.
Exactly.
And that reshapes how we consider victory, success, and even sacrifice.
But can we trust the notion that Trump really started this long war? What about previous administrations?
That's a good challenge. McGregor clearly demarcates Trump's approach as different. He argues that this new style of conflict is marked by a deliberate escalation that isn't meant to be wrapped up quickly, which frankly contrasts with earlier doctrines that aimed for clearer endpoints.
I see. So, in his view, this is a strategic pivot towards an endless state of conflict, almost like a baseline condition for US military engagement moving forward?
Precisely. And, he points out that the temporary ceasefire is, in many ways, a strategic lull rather than a true resolution. It's almost like a pause button that never really stops the game,
Yeah.
a pause that only delays the inevitable.
That's a pretty stark image. Do you think his view accounts for all the complexities on the ground, though?
Well, it's definitely a provocative take, but I'd say it's one lens among many. His military background fuels his perspective, giving weight to his argument that warfare, particularly when intertwined with politics, seldom has clear demarcations. But I can see some might argue that there are other factors at play that he may downplay.
Yeah, I mean, isn't it risky to pin the entire notion of long-term conflict on one administration's strategy? What about the geopolitical nuances with allies and adversaries?
Absolutely, that's a fair critique. While McGregor zeroes in on Trump's actions, the broader context involves long-standing alliances, rivalries, and shifting power dynamics globally. It's
Totally.
a multifaceted chess game.
For sure. And sometimes it feels like while one person is painting the picture of a long war, another might say, wait a minute, isn't this more about global uncertainty rather than a single leader's decision?
Exactly, and this is where the debate becomes really dynamic. What's interesting is that McGregor's argument forces us to re-examine the nature of conflict in the contemporary global order.
Yeah.
It brings a fresh perspective to the table.
Speaking of global order, how does he envision the role of US military power in this so-called long war?
It seems he's suggesting that US military strategy is now geared toward a kind of perpetual intervention, sort of a live action strategy where the US is never truly disengaged. It's like always being on its toes, and that can be exhausting politically and militarily.
And that approach must have significant implications for both domestic policy and the perception of US strength overseas.
Exactly. There's this inherent tension between projecting strength and managing an endless quagmire, and McGregor seems to warn that this path may ultimately undermine American
Right.
resolve. And over time, that can lead to a kind of policy fatigue.
It's a balancing act, isn't it? On one hand, maintaining deterrence, on the other, avoiding long drawn out conflicts that drain resources and morale?
Yes, indeed. And his argument really brings to light how complex the modern nature of warfare is becoming. It's not just about armies in the field, it's about strategic messaging, political theater, and even perception management.
Yeah,
Almost like a multidimensional game of chess where every move counts.
that's a neat analogy. But don't you think there could be a more optimistic spin on things? I mean, can change in tactics or leadership steer the course towards actual resolution?
That's an interesting point. While Macgregor's view is rather pessimistic, almost fatalistic, you might say, there is room to argue that shifts in policy or robust diplomacy could yet interrupt this endless cycle. Though his credibility as someone with deep military insight makes his caution sound.
It's true, his military background does give his warnings a certain gravitas.
Right. And it serves as a reminder that military conflicts aren't always resolved by conventional victories. Even when battles seemingly end, the war might just be moving to a new front,
Exactly.
in a different theater, or even on an ideological front.
That perspective definitely challenges traditional views on conflict resolution. So, would you say his analysis aligns with broader trends in global military engagement?
In many ways, yes. When you look at how other powers, Russia, China, and even non-state actors, operate, there's an increasing reliance on hybrid warfare, cyber operations, and prolonged engagement without a clear-cut victory. Macgregor's view fits into that pattern, albeit through a distinctly American lens.
And that makes us question, who is really winning in a long war? Is it the one who maintains the facade of peace, or the one who continually adapts to ongoing conflict?
Right, exactly. That's the million-dollar question. It reminds me of a story from history, where a power tried to hold on to a temporary peace, only to find that the simmering conflict erupted unexpectedly at the worst moment. Historical cycles, you know?
Absolutely, history does tend to repeat itself in these subtle ways.
And by drawing this connection, Macgregor essentially pushes us to think about the future of US strategy. Is it sustainable to operate in this endless mode of engagement, or do we need a new paradigm altogether?
I gotta say, it's a real eye-opener, even if you might disagree on some specifics. There's a lot of nuance about intent, legacy, and even the real cost of endless warfare.
For sure. And while I appreciate his perspective, I do wonder if it oversimplifies some of the complexities of current US policy by attributing them solely to Trump's decisions.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a
certainly there
challenge
are
to
multiple
single out
factors
one
at play.
administration's impact.
Exactly, and that's where robust debate comes in. It's important to critically evaluate all angles before drawing sweeping conclusions.
Totally. Ultimately, what Macgregor forces us to grapple with is the notion that modern warfare is evolving. It's messy, it's protracted, and it's not going to end with a clean victory. And that's a conversation worth having.
No doubt. It's a timely reminder that even with advances in technology and strategy, the fundamentals of conflict often remain unpredictable and, well, unsettling.
Right, exactly. And as we wrap up, the key takeaway here is that we need to stay vigilant and continuously reassess how we define success in
Absolutely.
warfare. Because sometimes what appears as peace might just be a prelude to more complications.
Well put. It's a complex, multi-layered issue, and discussions like this are crucial for understanding where we stand and where we might be headed.
Indeed, it's been a lively and thought-provoking conversation. Thanks for diving into this challenging topic with me.
Anytime. It's always great to bounce these ideas around and sharpen our views.